Hello, Husker fans, and welcome back to another episode of Generation Red, the kettle corn of Husker fan podcast, where we try to be sweet, but at times we get salty. I am your host, Ken.
And I am your other host, Scott.
And we've got another one.
I'm a guest tonight, Coach BA.
That's right. He's a guest host. You're a host tonight, Coach. You're a host.
Oh yeah.
So you've got to act like one. Well, we don't have hardly anything to talk about tonight, folks. So this is going to be a fairly quick show. We're just going to talk about how awful that crap show was in Iowa City for the second half, and then we'll just call it a night. What do you say? Sound good, guys? We really don't want to go beyond that.
Not much going on in the world.
Nothing's happened in the last 48 hours. We're good.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. It's been slow news, real slow. I mean, we're going to a bowl. We've got that to talk about. I guess we could do that at the end. So, but anyway, we just want to thank all of you for watching and listening, and make sure you're following us at Gen Red Pod on Facebook, Twix, and YouTube. Subscribe to Generation Red on your favorite podcast app if you want to listen to the audio version of this live stream and all of our previous shows. Also, please do us a favor, like and subscribe and join the conversation by interacting with us in the live chat or by leaving a comment below this video once it becomes on demand. Gen Red merch is now available on our website. Go to genredpod.com, click on the link in the gray bar at the top of the page, and that'll send you to our merch store. Thanks to Hurrdat Sports for doing that. And our email, of course, is genredpod@gmail.com. Hurrdat Sports, we appreciate them. They are our partner in doing this podcast on the audio side, and they provide all the bandwidth for this show. So if you're listening to this, thank Hurrdat Sports. They're great people, and they have partnered us with Underdog Sports, which and they're offering a killer promo for our listeners. To get started, just download their app, sign up, and deposit using the code GENRED, GENRED, all one word. And you can receive up to $1,000 in bonus cash plus a free pick. Underdog Sports is the easiest place to play fantasy sports. So what are you waiting for? Get started today. All righty, now that we've got all of the particulars out of the way, guys, let's talk about what we're going to talk about tonight. First of all, for those of you watching and listening, the plan here is to recap the Iowa game and talk a little bit about that pregame drama that went on. We're also going to talk about the current coaching staff news, signing day, players that have entered the portal, and any bowl game destinations that we think might be in Nebraska's future. So, yeah, we lied at the beginning. There was a little bit of news, just a little bit of news over the last 48 hours. And anybody in Huskerdom that doesn't know about any of that news, what's wrong with you? You need to get a life, because there's plenty of stuff to speculate on and be experts on. Just ask anybody on Twitter. So, let's talk about Iowa, guys. Let's just get this out of the way. Let's rip the Band-Aid off. Let's let the healing begin so that we can move into the healing balm that is, I guess, the current news, which I'm not so sure about that. But when I think of the Iowa game, guys, the first thought that comes to my mind is missed opportunity, because there was no clue, no doubts about it. Nebraska absolutely outplayed the Hawkeyes on both sides of the ball for all but 4 plays, when you really think about it. I'll go with you, Coach. Your initial thoughts about the Iowa game and kind of where you saw things going from the first half and into the second half. I think you probably believe it's the same spot in the game where you went, oh crap, here we go again. But I'd just be curious, where did you see it turn and go, oh shoot, this might be just like all the others?
Well, first off, I agree with you. It felt like a very big missed opportunity. For me, the first punt situation was definitely my first, oh crap, okay. But then the defense held them to a field goal, and I think they only gained like 1 or 2 yards. And I was like, okay, this is good. Now, that Caleb Johnson super long touchdown where the defense was dang near perfect all night except for one play. That one play is where it completely flipped on its head. And when that game became 10-10, that was in my mind. I was doing like a live show watch along, just had some people in there watching. And that was in my head, trying not to vocalize it. But I'm like, this feels like it's going to be headed in the same directions as last year's game. it just kind of felt that way and that's the thing that's frustrating is Nebraska was dominating that game in every conceivable way, and they found a way to lose. And I was trying not to say that. I was trying to be positive. I was trying to be the good fan. I was trying to be super positive. And then it happened just like I feared it would, if that makes sense. And it's a big missed opportunity. But the only thing that didn't get me completely distraught and everything is, could you imagine if that was how our season ended, was on that play right there? If that was, we were still sitting at 5 wins, and that was how that would be tough. That was the only reason. It's super hard not to feel emotional and upset in the moment, but I just kept having to remind myself, it's okay. We got to 6 wins. It'll be okay. But to me, that was just my initial thoughts.
Scott.
Well, it certainly felt like, to paint a picture here, imagine it's the middle of the night and you're walking to go use the restroom and you step in a puddle of your dog's pee, only to react and then start walking on some Legos, which those then cause you to trip, and then you kick your toe on the corner of the coffee table or the side table that's in your hallway or something like that. And then you fall and your phone opens up to your 401k balance, and you find that you accidentally traded all your 401k for little to no shares. And that's basically how it felt. It was just like I'm just going to go do a monotonous task here. Everything seems to be going well, and then we could just see it unfold. I think both me and my dad said when we were watching the game that as soon as we made that first mistake, the prototypical Nebraska mistake and the prototypical Iowa capitalizing off of somebody else's buffoonery, it just, at that moment, I was like, I don't see this. I don't see this ending any other way. Because if we did that, we're going to find another thing to screw up. And it's just going to be a series of unfortunate events that will lead to a game-winning field goal. And that's exactly what happened. The Caleb Johnson run was just a mystery wrapped in an enigma. It's like that was almost half of their entire offensive productivity in one play. 92 other yards accounted for on their offense aside from that. So 20 more yards of offensive production beside that one play. 20 on top of another 72. Yeah. It's just dumbfounding. It just seems like just when I feel like Nebraska's inching their way towards a change of some sort, of a fundamental change, these are those moments that just kind of bring me back down to earth and realize that we still have a long way to go. And it just especially sucks with Iowa. It just hurts more. It is crazy that, I've said, I'm not on Twitter, but I'm on Twitter. I've been on Twitter basically chronically for the last week. And the one thing that I noticed about this game, I'll sidebar here really quick, is it brought out a lot of contention between certain more level-headed Iowa fans that I'm aware of, that I still follow on Twitter. And generally in the past, it's been a little bit more cordial, like they're kind of the, hey, Nebraska fans, it sucks that you lost to us in the same way for the 50th time in a row. But you know what? I think you guys are on the right track and all this stuff. This time didn't really have that vibe. It really was like just nasty. And you know what? It is what it is. Iowa just is so good at snatching victory out of the jaws of defeat. That is their MO, and our MO is the exact opposite.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
And something's going to change at some point. Kurt Ferentz is going to eventually retire. And I don't know what Iowa does after that point. And Nebraska is going to eventually make their way back to winning more games than they have been winning. And it just stinks when it looks like that, man. It's really frustrating. I don't know if anything else really that I have anything else really to say about just the overall take of the game, but it hurt. It hurt a lot. That was the worst loss of the season, in my opinion. Yeah, Indiana kind of sucked. That was kind of embarrassing and all that stuff, but just everything on the bingo card in this game, man. It was just so stupid.
Yeah. I mean, when you, like you said, 164 yards of total offense for Iowa. Nebraska basically doubled that at 334, 340 some or whatever. I actually didn't write down the offensive yards. 115 passing, 71 of them just on that one screen. There was a total of 49 yards of rushing. Johnson had 45 of those on 17 carries for a 2.6 yard average. I think he'd been averaging almost 8 a carry this year. I mean, the level at which that defense played, to me, it was like watching an old school unit from the mid 90s and maybe even the early couple of years of Solich when he really had some good defenses. They absolutely shut down the run, which is what black shirt football is. You shut down a run, number one, you force the team to be one-dimensional. They were already one-dimensional. That's all they could do was run.
Yeah.
So you figured, hey, if we're shutting him down, we've got a great chance to win this game as long as we don't play the typical brand of Nebraska football against Iowa, which
what is so frustrating.
Yeah.
And that's what frustrates me so much is I kept telling everyone that would listen before the game. I know every coach in America, if you go to your local middle school, they're going to say, we need to control the line of scrimmage. But this was the stereotypical, if you control the line of scrimmage, especially defensively, you win this game. And then we did, and we still lost.
Yeah. Every possible way that you could have told another team that you're not winning today, Nebraska did, except for holding on to the football and for making one blasted tackle next to the sideline. And I mean, we literally tackled each other, 3 of us. I mean, Bullock had him. Bullock, all he had to do was get him down. He had him. And then Singleton and Ty Robinson come along. They collide with him. Next thing you know, all 3 of them are watching him run down the sideline. And it's like, come on. Can we not play Keystone Cops for just one damn game? That would be really cool because you couldn't have played better as the Black Shirts. But they had absolutely no support in the second half. Nebraska jumps out to that 10-0 lead. You're thinking, wow, maybe they got a shot at stepping their foot on their throat. Because they got the touchdown toward the end of the second quarter. I mean, it was 3-0 for most of that first half until the last 2 minutes of the second quarter. We made that beautiful drive right down the field, scored. And you're thinking, and then they go right down the field again, starting the third quarter. And I thought, this is it. We go up 17-0. It's a done deal. That's all we need. That's really all we need, the way this defense is playing. And then we couldn't. And then we couldn't snap a dang ball. Mm-hmm. And here you go. John Hull doesn't have the ball where he needs it, doesn't have it there when he needed it there. And everything was just off on that field goal kick. You can't put that on number 90. Just can't put that on number 90. Everything before he got foot to ball was wrong. So, but yeah, they had no support from the offense or the special teams. And like I said, defense played well enough. Nebraska should have won that game 17-0. There should have been an absolute shutout that night.
Think about it, though. Nebraska, defensively, if you're just looking at them, they gave up 7 points. They gave up the touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
Take out that one play because the first field goal came off that punt situation. The game-winning field goal came off the Raiola fumble. Take that out. Mm-hmm. They're talking one play. Defense had one bad play that gave up points.
Yep. Yeah, it is crazy to think about the fact that game, aside from really 3 key mistakes, and you could argue 4, like my dad said, is a shutout. Nebraska shuts them out. Yeah. It could have been a 13-0 shutout, because who knows what other opportunities we may have conjured up for ourselves. But that missed field goal opportunity, that now that we mentioned that was really kind of the first moment where I'm like, Iowa.
That was my moment. That was the moment I said, here we go again.
Iowa feeds off of our mistakes, and they feed off of everybody else's mistakes. But yeah, those key moments, the missed field goal, the botched punt return, the fluke touchdown, and that fumble now near the end of the game that could have set up for a game tying situation or a game lead. They could have taken the lead there. Those three instances are just mind-bogglingly. I don't even know. It's like, how do I even begin to like describe the agony and the pain and the suffering of being a Husker fan? Like, this is just, it's just so terrible.
There he is. He's one of your cousins, I think. Some sort of relative anyway. It's Eric Honeycutt. Says, great work, go Big Red. Thank you. I'm not sure if you're saying great work to the team or to us. We appreciate it. Appreciate you watching, Eric. Thank you. And Andy Harris said Iowa had 20 total yards in the first half. I remember seeing that now.
I believe I believe it was 4 plays that went over 10 yards for them the entire game.
Yeah.
I think that was the stat that I was hearing. 4
plays. 5 first downs, no third down conversions.
Yeah, you take away the muffed punt. And you keep a possession, maybe you don't score, you punt it back to them or whatever. If you don't have a bad snap and you actually kick the field goal, you're up 13-0. And okay, so maybe Caleb still busts that run and it's 13-7. And then if Nair catches that ball with all that green grass in front of him, there's no reason he doesn't score unless it's too damn cold for him to actually get his legs moving. Maybe it was too cold for him to reach his hands closed to actually go around the football. I don't know. That non-catch looked a little suspect to me, but anyway, I don't
tinfoil
subscribe to it. Was just like, come on, dude. It was literally right there. How do you not catch that ball unless you're betting the under? Not to accuse a young man of anything like that, but that's what I would do. Please drop it. I've got the freaking under. But yeah, that's, you know what? I think we've said everything that everybody else has said, right? I mean, there's really not much else you can say about the game unless you guys have other things that just crossed your mind that you wanted to say about this. Like we said, 4 plays decided it. The muffed punt, which resulted in 3 points, a strip sack for 3 points, and a long screen pass. And then if Nair doesn't drop that ball, it's a done deal anyway. Even if we did give up 13 points, it's 17-13. It doesn't matter that Raiola got strip sacked. So, yeah, and a miss on Lloyd. Sorry, I knocked that off of there. He literally overthrew him. Now, I don't know if the wind, we kind of talked about it during the game, Scott. Maybe the wind was blowing toward that sideline. So it sure seemed like he overthrew Fedoni over there too, didn't he? He was wide open.
Yeah, the wind was blowing in that direction. I don't know if it was enough to affect it that badly, but yeah, it could have been a 21-0 game if we got that touchdown on our first drive. And then that Nair. I mean, Nair was he had nothing but green grass in front of him. And with his speed, I don't see any reason why he didn't get in the end zone there, or at least set us up for more points. But whatever. Yeah.
Yep. Good question, Husker Corner. Thank you, Eric. Thoughts on special teams overall? If you want to know my thoughts on it, I posted it on Twitter and then I ended up deleting it the next day, not because I was drunk tweeting, but because I was anger tweeting, and I thought it was a little bit rude. But in my opinion, but Ed Foley should have been given a bus ticket back to wherever he came from Iowa City, and not be able to show back up in Lincoln. Special teams have been an absolute atrocity. We can't return the ball. We can't hold on to the ball. We can't handle a punt when we need to handle a punt. And when we do, we handle it at the goddamn 4-yard line when our heels should be on the 10-yard line, and let that damn thing go over our head. There's basic fundamentals that I've heard numerous podcasts, and I believe I've even heard you say it too, Coach. This is high school stuff. This is stuff you learned the first day you walk into Pee Wee football. For a guy who's never played, I know this to be true. Hey, plant your feet right there, and if that ball's going over your head, you don't touch it. I mean, come on. half the time I think these guys are so desperate to try to improve special teams and prove that they can do it, that they make decisions they don't need to make because they're trying to play hero ball.
Yep.
But overall, I think John Hull's been a revelation. When he gets a good snap and he gets a good hold, man, that dude's got a cannon for a leg. Every bit as good as Alex Henry's. I think it's no mistake he's wearing number 90. Brett Maher, I think having him on the staff has made leaps and bounds improvements for John Hull and for his psyche as a kicker. But everything else is kind of throw the dice and see if it works out,
Yeah.
So you guys got any thoughts on special teams?
The only highlight I can think of special teams this year, I'd say two. Yes, John Hull, but really it was just that Ja'Cory Barney kickoff return to start the game against Wisconsin, I believe, where he took it for like 30 something yards to midfield, something like that. Like that's the only like explosive special teams play that I've seen. I mean, we have like a blocked punt or a blocked kick. Like we've had one or two of those this year, early in the year. But yeah, no, there's nothing really else that can be said from my perspective on special teams other than it's just been bad. It's been bad. And I think that's going to make a lot of difference in a lot of the games that we play from here on out. I mean, we've been saying this for years, but like a lot of the games that we seem to lose the difference would be, do we have competent special teams? I don't care what check we need to sign and who we need to go steal from somewhere. We got to find a guy who is just an absolute nerd for special teams and can set a fire underneath our guys' butts and get them in the right direction for it.
Yeah, my thing is this season has caused me to put together a special teams portfolio just for the fact of I'm applying for special teams positions in the Kansas City area just to prove to myself that I can teach 15 to 17-year-olds not to do all the dumb stuff that Nebraska special teams have been doing. So that's something that I've been kind of doing for myself because I want to prove it to myself.
Absolutely. Andy Harris says Ed Foley's tourist trip around Nebraska is over. He has tried every small town restaurant. Of course, my response was he looks like he's tried every restaurant everywhere. We still can't block gunners on punt return.
Yes.
Why?
Yeah.
Is it an ability do we lack speed, coach? Is it technique? What do you think it is that keeps us from keeping a gunner from getting in somebody's face?
It's a lot of times, in my opinion, technique and just discipline of just feels like we bite on it early. But a lot of it's, I feel like, technique because I feel like the initial effort is there. They're just not able to get that done. And the fact that has not improved throughout the year is has any of our special teams improved throughout the year? I know John Hull had his, few moments, but like think of the bad snap again on last Friday night. It's like, has there been any special teams unit as a whole that has improved? I say no. That's just,
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Barney is underutilized all around and fully needs to go, says Husker Corner. Thoughts on Ja'Cory Barney? Well, we could use a whole podcast up, I think, if we were to talk about Ja'Cory Barney. And we'll get into this later when we kind of talk about some of the other news that comes out about the coaching staff. But Holgorsen has referred to him as who's the player? Tank Bell, whatever his name was. Tank Dell, sorry, who he coached at Houston and whose wide receivers coach is very, very likely going to be the wide receivers coach here. So I think the future for Ja'Cory is very, very bright indeed. Now that the 14-year-old wide receivers coach is going to be retained apparently as an analyst and a recruiter, which would be great. He'll be great with all those kids who love Teen Beat magazine. That's not a joke I've not heard in another podcast ever. No, I haven't heard that anywhere else at all. The Gunners have to be double teamed immediately at the line, and we don't do that. Yeah, I hear you. Sometimes I think we've got a little gun shy.
Yeah.
Are we worried more, Coach, about people faking it on us because they know we're going to turn and run like hell to try to block that gunner? Is that part of the problem too?
Maybe maybe that might be a thing. I feel like that is definitely something that we probably should be doing, is double teaming them at the line, and we haven't. We've just
Right.
I don't know. I feel like all of our punt return this year, it just feels like they all look the same, if that makes sense. It's either one of two things. We're always showing pressure. We don't always send pressure. So we're either trying to block it, never really seem to, or we're playing a safe return and then we just fair catch it. And I think part of my frustration with the punt return situation is it feels like no matter what, we're going to try and fair catch it. Like it's predetermined, and we're not blocking the gunners. That's another thing, is I think that plays part of it. Since we're not blocking well, I think we're just planning on fair catching everything. But there's situations where I was like, dude, they just gave you a free 7, 8, 9 yards, like free, like not even you falling forward, but they are 15 yards away. If you catch the ball and just run forward, you're going to meet them in the middle. And it's just not happening. You know what I mean? It's just, I feel like it's very conservative, and I think we've all talked about before. I think part of it plays into trying not to make mistakes, keep things close, that sort of thing.
Yep. Andy, I see your question up there on the screen about Holgorsen, and we will get to that here in time. We're going to kind of finish up our thoughts here on Iowa here real quick. I just wanted to throw out a crazy fact, kind of like I did last week, Scott, that just blew my mind when I saw it. Nebraska's defense did not give up a rushing touchdown at all in 2024 until the Indiana game, in which they gave up 5 touchdowns on the ground. But then they only gave up one other rushing touchdown in 2024, including absolutely 0 at home. So 6 rushing TDs. I think the under hit on our over-under game on that one, Scott. So that was pretty impressive.
Yeah,
for
Robert.
Sure. Yep.
Robert is a Hawkeye fan jumping in late here. He does agree with our statistical analysis of domination. But not scoring in the second half is not domination. Hawks scored 13 points for a win, and Nebraska's 6-6 season is just mediocre. I see where you're coming from there, buddy. Yes, when I think of domination, I think of I don't know, when Nebraska got our asses kicked by Indiana. That's definitely, I would consider that getting dominated. But what we were specifically pointing out is that Iowa basically did nothing aside from a few key plays. And that's Iowa's MO. Iowa's MO is they're going to play to your weaknesses. It's not that Iowa's strength is their own level of well-rounded complementary football. They're going to have a great defense. They're going to have good special teams. They're going to have a bad offense, and they're going to wait for you to screw up.
Yes.
And the reason why Nebraska has had basically no success in their rivalry with Iowa for the better half of the decade is because the exact opposite has been true for Nebraska. We can't capitalize off of mistakes. We give people mistakes all the time. Our offense is super mistake prone, but also explosive in some ways. And that makes sense why the only year that Nebraska's beat Iowa in recent history is when we had Trey Palmer just down there somewhere and we were able to just lob it to him, which Iowa almost found a way to come back because Nebraska has a gun aimed at their foot 24/7. So I see where you're coming from, but Iowa basically did nothing the entire game. Nebraska wasn't able to do a lot in the second half, but once again, that's just because of the perpetual gun aimed at their foot. We had all the talent to do anything that we wanted to do. I think a lot of it had to do with a record cold, second coldest game played at Kinnick. So that doesn't help an explosive offense. I don't think any offense. I don't think that Oregon or Ohio State would have had a heyday during that game either. If they played Iowa in those same conditions, I don't think any explosive offense is going to have a great day that day.
Yeah, I agree with you.
But yeah, no, I see where you're coming from. It just sucks as a Husker fan to know that literally the only reason why Iowa has ever beaten Nebraska is because Nebraska beats Nebraska. And you can argue with that all you want, but I just when when you just look at it statistically and with the eye test, Iowa just waits for Nebraska to screw up. That's it. That's really, if you wanted to summarize the rivalry in the last 8 years, it's been that.
Yeah,
for sure. For sure. Game MVP, I'd say the black shirts. I can't think of any one person that I would really point out on the team, but man, that defense was good. So,
yeah, I don't.
John Bullock had a good game outside of that.
He did
one
have
play, but I agree.
He did have a good game.
The overall defense is good call.
Yeah, because Emmett didn't really have as good of a day as we would have wanted him to. But between him and Dante, they had a pretty good running back by committee, like combo. Yeah, our wide receivers just kept dropping balls, or just weren't getting any help from our quarterback room. So yeah, I mean, I'd say our black shirt defense just in general. But if I had to pick one person out, I agree. John Bullock was the guy who I was noticing.
Sure. Yeah, I could have not taken the shortcut. I could have said Bullock as well.
No, I do think that was a good call though, because I don't think he was, necessarily like leaps and bounds above everybody else. That was just a quick one that came to my mind.
Okay, real quick, because I probably don't want to spend too much time on this, because I'd kind of like to move on to the, all the news that really hasn't happened over the last 48 hours. Pre-game stuff. We all know about the fact that they had cops surrounding the midfield logo so that Nebraska couldn't go out there and do their typical huddle prayer before the game. And then, of course, Nebraska captains did not shake hands with the Iowa Hawkeyes during the coin toss. I'd like to get you guys' thoughts. I have my own, but I'll start with you, Scott. What do you think of all that? Do you think that was a bad look for both teams, or was it just typical rivalry crap and we should just flush it and call it that's what it is? It is what it is and move on.
Yeah, if Justin were to come in here, I would probably have a good time with him, because I agree with pretty much anything that Justin has said thus far on Twitter. Has stuck his neck out there. My philosophy is that rivalries are rivalries for a reason. They're fueled by hatred. They're fueled by resentment and disgust for each other. In the past, there've definitely been more respectful rivalries. Like, from what I've heard, I didn't grow up really experiencing it, but like the Nebraska-Oklahoma rivalry had its moments of nastiness, but for the most part, it was a pretty handshake type of rivalry. Pretty cordial, suit and tie type of understanding with each other. And then there's just the downright nasty rivalries. And at this point, I don't think that there's any arguing that Nebraska fans and Iowa fans just don't like each other.
Nope.
And to have the players emulate that kind of representation of how the fan bases feel about each other, I have no problem with it. I don't like the whole virtue measuring of like, oh, here's my arbitrary and somewhat I don't even know, like, moral standard that they want for a respectful rivalry. When, I mean, I've seen people compare it back and forth, like, well, what about this? Well, what about this? How could you as an Iowa fan be mad at Nebraska for not shaking hands when your kicker, blows kisses to the crowd and blows kisses at Matt Rule? There's just been moments throughout our history of being a rival that there's just been some downright disrespectful behaviors towards each other. I've heard plenty of horror stories of Husker fans going to Iowa City, and the second they are walking around on campus, there's some snobby college student that gives them the finger and says some provocative things to them. And I don't know, because I'm in a Husker fan base, and I go to tons of games all the time, and I've never seen Husker fans be mean or nasty to opposing fans. And we've been to a lot of Iowa games, and I don't think I've seen it, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. I'm sure that there's been some drunk college student that does the same thing to some unassuming Iowa fan. So all I have to say is that when there is a bitter, resentful rivalry, if it's in the fan base, it's going to be in the players too. And I have no issue with people getting kind of tribalistic It's human nature. It's men. That's how men are. Men are we are just mean and nasty to each other sometimes. And when a man feels disrespected, or a human being, we'll just say broad speaking, human beings, when they feel disrespected, they tend to just dish it back at them. And so I don't care if you don't shake hands. That's fine with me. Just don't spit. Don't throw punches. Getting in actual fights over trivial things is that's kind of where I would say, like, okay, grow up. But I just think that not shaking somebody's hand, yeah, it's kind of disrespectful, but grow up, wear a helmet. Life's hard. So like, that's my opinion. I don't have a problem with it. Like I said, unless it's like actually physically getting violent, or there's some sort of thing that could actually be legally a crime, then it's like, all right, now we're kind of crossing over into like, grow up, be an adult here. But seriously, not shaking somebody's hand. Like, if the results would have been the other way, this is my hypothetical here. If, let's say, Nebraska won that game, and that footage leaked of the captains not shaking Iowa Hawkeyes hands, there would not be this substantial fan base of Nebraska fans that would be like, oh, that is so bad. I'm so sorry, Iowa fans. That's so, oh man, how bad is that? They would have been like, you guys kind of earned that one. You guys have been pretty nasty to us over the years. So, you can stick that in your pipe and smoke it. I just think that a lot of Husker fans have kind of bent the knee to this and been like, oh guys, I'm so sorry. Wow, that was so bad of us, man. Boo hoo. I'm so sorry. And I think it's just simply because we feel ashamed that we lost. Shame makes people do a lot of weird things and make them try to bridge the gap between contentions. And I think that's really where a lot of Husker fans are at, is they feel ashamed that they lost the game. And then they see this come out, and it just adds more weight to that shame. And then they act out on it. And so it's like, whatever. Humans, we're silly. I'm not gonna, if I were in that same position, if I felt disrespected right before the game happened through various avenues of whatever mutual respect need to be paraded, I'm not shaking your hand either, buddy.
Yeah,
but
I got you.
Yeah, that's my thoughts and my little soapbox. I just think it's silly that people are
I'm in a slightly different camp, in the sense that I don't truly care about the pregame prayer thing. You can pray anywhere you want. Yeah. But to purposely make it a point of, well, we're going to go stand on the opposing team's logo, to me is a little disrespectful, number one. So they brought cops out to keep whatever. It's just kind of a Bush League move, but they did what they did. And then the captains decide not to shake hands. For me, I don't care how much I disrespect somebody. I don't care how much I hate a team or a bunch of fans or whatever. I've seen a lot of former players talk about this, so I tend to side with them in the sense that, you go out, you shake the man's hand, you look him in the eye and say, I'm fixing to kick your ass. You turn around, you go back to your sidelines, and that's what you do. He said, you don't need to be thinking about whether or not you're going to shake somebody's hand. You need to be thinking about your game plan. So go out and do what you normally do. Shake their hand, tell them you're going to kick their ass, and walk back to the sideline. So I kind of get that side. For me, I think it's a bad look, but at the same time, it reminds me of like 90s era Miami teams, 90s era Colorado teams, K-State teams like that used to chirp a lot and throw attitude and get up in Nebraska's face. So to me, it was like, we don't do that. That's not who we are, but I guess that's who we are now. And if that's who we are now, okay, so be it. It is what it is. I didn't really have a problem with the linebacker after the game going up to Rule and getting in his face and saying whatever it was he said and all this stuff. None of that bothers me, because like you said, it's a rivalry. But at the same time, I think it would have been better look to shake their hands at least. But that's just me.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at on it. So it would have definitely been a better look. How about you, Coach? I don't really have, quote unquote, a moral ground that I'm standing on.
No,
I just appreciate the idea of, that man across from me, hey, maybe we don't like each other for these next 60 minutes. but I respect what he accomplishes, and he should respect what I accomplish. But
yeah,
go
no,
ahead.
I agree. I really ultimately care that much? No, not really. I mean, it doesn't deeply affect me. I take it as kind of like what you said, and also just like it's just a really bad look when we lose the way that we lose. You know what I mean? Like when Nebraska goes out there and loses the way that they lose. I know it had no effect on the game whatsoever. If you think Iowa was extra motivated because of that, I don't think you watched the game because it honestly looked like the opposite way around for a lot of that game. Nebraska came out fired up. But I don't think it played anything. It's just is Nebraska really in a spot right now where we should be like showing up anybody, if that makes sense?
Yeah.
Like that's
Very
kind
true.
of my thoughts, and I don't really care. I'm not offended. I don't think it's a super classless thing to do. But I'm also not going to be getting lectured on by Iowa and Iowa fans about a classy program. You know what I'm saying? That's not where I'm kind of stuck in the middle on that. Like if I was the head coach of that team of Nebraska, would I? No, I wouldn't want my players to be shaking the hands, but I'm not in that position, right? I just kind of think of it as, are we really in a spot where we should be trying to, showboat above other teams? That's just kind of my thought on it. Because again,
it looks
when we
bad.
lose the way that we lose and we keep it's a consistent theme. This team keeps losing the way they lose. It's just a bad look. And I know that in hindsight, obviously we can say that we lost the way we lost. So if the game goes differently, maybe, you don't feel, but like, in my opinion, we just haven't shown that ability to not do that. That's just kind of I don't feel super strongly either way. It's just,
I think two things can be true at once. That like it's a bad look when you don't shake the other team's hands. Like no matter who you are, it doesn't look good, and it's not a big deal. Like it's
spot on.
It's like I don't see why the Iowa fan base is just so huffy and puffy about it. It's like, if we want to start digging through each other's closets to find skeletons, let's whip it out, baby. Like, and then it just becomes, once again, it just fuels into that resentful rivalry that we have.
Yep.
And so I just think it's, as a person who has literally not tweeted on Twitter more than twice in the last year, like just being the one who's lurking and seeing just all of this play out and not have any desire to interact with it. It's just infinitely fascinating to just see kind of like how fans react to these kind of situations. Because from the outside looking in, you might have some opinion about it, but in all reality, like it just feels different when we're a Husker fan or when you're an Iowa fan. Like I guarantee you, if Iowa saw that same thing, if an Iowa fan is watching, let's just say Michigan and Ohio State pregame, turns out, oh my goodness, Ohio State didn't shake the hands of Michigan before they went out and beat them 13-10. They would just be like, well, look at that, guys. The rivalry is so bitter and deep. God, that's got to feel so good for Michigan. Like it's like I said, it's two things can be true at once. Not a good look, not ideal, but it also isn't really that big idea. It's not that big of a deal.
But they planted a flag at least, so that was quite the scrum.
Yeah, that's where I'd feel pretty disrespected.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah. Blowing kisses, I'll take that over Iowa planting a flag midfield every day.
To be brutally honest, I feel far more hatred toward the University of Texas than I probably ever will toward the University of Iowa, simply because they came into Nebraska and they planted the flag in the middle of the field back in 2005, was it? I think, or 6, something like that. So that just set me on it. I'm like, come on, don't do that. That's just plain disrespectful. So, anyway, I think we're pretty much done.
Yeah.
Done with the Iowa games. Let's flip the page to some more drama going on. Drama within the coaching staff. We've obviously had some news surface. Tell me the story you told me before we went on air, BA Coach, about what was going on with you right around the time that the news of Coach White came out.
Okay, I was on 1620 The Zone with Gary Sharp on the Gary Sharp Show. We were having a conversation. We talked a lot about the Iowa game and just kind of just give some overall thoughts on the season a little bit, where we thought the team was at. Thought it was one of the better conversations we had had. Thought it went really well. And then I got off, and within 15 minutes, Tony White's going to FSU. And then I'm like, I just sent Gary a little message. I said, no one cares about our conversation anymore. That's all old news.
Yep.
Yeah, for certain. Implications. I don't know if your ear is really close to the ground, Coach, or you, Scott, as far as the lurking tendencies you have on Twitter. Some of the things I've seen on Twitter is that it looks like John Butler might be kind of the inside track to be the new DC, and I know you've got your feelings about that, Coach. I do too. And it sounds like part of the reason for the White departure is the fact that, even though his defense finished statistically and rankings wise very close to last year's, there were a lot of cooks in the kitchen when it came to putting that passing defense together with them, bringing in Phil Snow along with John Butler and changing up the coverage schemes. So with your insight, what if it's John Butler? Talk me into why maybe this could work out well, or why you think maybe it would be a mistake.
I would not love the John Butler hire, just because I feel like a lot of the coverage schemes that we ran this year were his schemes, right? And when you look at the one area of the defense that we had the most complaints about throughout the year, what position group was that?
Defensive back, especially
you know what I mean?
the corners. Yeah.
And I'm of the opinion that, my personal opinion, football-wise, coaching-wise, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And Matt Rule, for whatever reason, felt the need to try and fix the defense a little bit. And I don't think that was needed. And another reason that I would be against the John Butler hire is, one, I definitely think we would be switching which I'm cool with switching defenses, for the record. I just think that would definitely mean a schematic change. But the other thing that I am kind of John Butler has not been a defensive coordinator for over 10 years now, right? This defensive, in my opinion, you guys can agree or disagree, you're not going to hurt my feelings. I think that this defensive coordinator hire could make or break Matt Rule's tenure at Nebraska. I really do believe that. Because I feel like if we go to a spot where, if the offense ends up clicking perfectly the way that we want it to under Dana Holgorsen, which we can talk about that here in a bit, but if that ends up clicking, if we go from losing games 13-10 to losing them 38-35, and we're still looking at 5-6 wins, that's not a good spot to. Do you know what I'm saying?
That'd be Bill Callahan
I'm not saying
level.
Matt Rule's super hot, but if you whiff on this hire, it could make or break. And you guys know I'm one of the biggest Matt Rule fans in the world. I'll defend this guy till the end. You guys know that. I love Matt Rule, but this could be a make or break hire, in my opinion. And if you're gonna go with the guy who, one, he hasn't done anything at Nebraska. I'm not saying he's a bad coach whatsoever, but in my opinion, the scheme fit wasn't great this year, and I don't think he showed anything. There was no improvement in the defensive backs. So you're going to go with the guy who came in Nebraska. The only thing that we've seen from him, honestly, the defense got a little worse in some areas than areas that he was a part of. He hasn't been a defensive coordinator. He hadn't coached in the college game before this year for 10 years. He hadn't been he was a defense coordinator for 1 year a decade ago. Is that who you are sticking? I'm not going to say stick your job on, but you get what I'm saying. If you whiff on this thing gets pretty hot, in my opinion. So that's another reason I'd be against the John Butler hires. I feel like we got to get a big name guy, and I don't know. I feel like John Butler hire maybe is safe for Matt Rule if Matt Rule wants to be as hands-on with the defense as he seemed to be this last year. So I don't know. I would be against the John Butler hire, but I would like to say I trust Matt Rule. But my opinion from the outside, that would not be a good direction for the program at this time. But maybe he sees it differently.
Yeah, I think pretty much everything that you've said, his pedigree, just the on-field results of this year, if there's any way that I can see that we took a step back from last year, is it has to be the defensive backs. And I don't know, like you said, I don't know if that's John Butler's sole fault. I don't know if it was attrition in the secondary. You had a lot of kind of movement around, injuries. You know, there was a lot going on in a defensive back room that you could easily scapegoat as it was just an off year. But I'd say that my main reason for not wanting to hire John Butler, you kind of alluded to it, is that when we hired Tony White, he was doing things at Syracuse. He was kind of a hot commodity. He was in the top 5 of defensive coordinators that you could have hired that year. Matt Rule's got to basically do the same thing. He's got to go snag up a hot defensive coordinator from a lesser program that wants to move up to Nebraska, make a lot more money, and have his work cut out for him, in just the sense that there's going to be a lot of attrition on our defense, and we're going to get into that. And there's just going to be, I mean, statistically, that you've got the stats of the last 2 years, and Nebraska on paper looks like a pretty solid defense for the past 2 years. And so you have big shoes you need to fill. And I just don't think that you just make I hate to use like a splash hire terminology, but like you kind of have to make a splash hire on the defense. Because like you said, imagine next year if suddenly our offense is clicking with Dana and he's got just dudes just slinging around the field, but it looks like a prototypical Big 12 type of situation where we're having to just score more points than our opponent. Like, I just don't think that bodes well for Matt Rule's job security, because my opinion, I think that Matt Rule's make or break year is 2025. I think he gets fired after next year if he ends up 6-6 again. It's
Good
great.
point.
We go to a bowl game again, but there's just so much that our team can evolve into. And if it comes down to making a bad hire on the defense, that's an indictment on a head coaching CEO competence. Like, you already you lost a lot of your fan base trust in you as a coach when you brought Satterfield in here, when literally like a good majority of the fans were like, that's a terrible hire. And all the South Carolina fans that you could possibly find were like, thank God, get this man away from us. He's so bad. I don't think that Matt Rule can afford to do that again. So he's got to make a splash hire. He's got to find a guy who's a hot commodity, and we got to pay him buku bucks, and he's got to come in here and he's got to basically generate the same results that we've seen statistically, I think.
Bo Pelini's looking for a job.
Hey. Oh, and I will before you give your thoughts on that, Dad. Robert, no, it is not a 75th Ranger hat. It is actually still just a Husker hat. It's just kind of a fancy one. It does look like a patch.
The Ranger
patch. I was in the Marine Corps.
I never thought of that before, but yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. My thoughts are simple. I think Rule has never had a bad defense necessarily when he's been a college coach. So if he does pull the trigger and it is somebody like John Butler, I'm going to have to just trust that he's seen what he needs to see. But at the same time, he hasn't coached as a defensive coordinator in 10 years, and wasn't he just a DC for like 1 year at Penn State? Yeah, moves on to the NFL. So, and I don't remember how good that Penn State defense was back in 2014, but I believe we beat them. I don't know if it was 2014.
They were 7-5.
Yep.
They were 7-5, and I'd have to go check college football stats. While you keep talking, I'll pull that up.
But if it were me, I think you're right, Scott. I think you need to get somebody proven. Jim Leonard is a name that keeps popping up everywhere. Everybody's like, go get this guy, go get this. He's kind of a 3-4 guy, isn't he, Coach? Isn't that kind of his staple is the 3-4?
Yeah, it would be a much more traditional defense, which went with what we saw this year from Matt Rule. I think maybe that is the direction that he wants to go, is a more traditional style I don't know. It's just not something we've seen from. I'm not saying it won't work. I was just saying that's not generally the direction he's had at the college game. So,
That's a good
yeah,
point right there on the screen. If it was an
yeah.
internal hire, you
I
would have
was
thought it
going
would
to
already been
say that.
announced.
That if it was an internal hire, we would already know right now. I have a feeling it's a DC that has got some things going on, like a bowl game or a conference championship game, perhaps. Who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, if it's an
I hope
external
this
hire,
hire ends up being like kind of like when the Tony White announcement came in. He was not on a lot of people's radars, and it was a home run hire. Everyone knew right away. You know what I mean? So I hope it's something like that where we're all throwing out names on who we think it'll be, and it'll be someone that completely surprises us. That's a home run. I'm not saying I'm against Jim Leonard or any of that. My opinion would be kind of cool if we just go get a home run guy that's still coaching right now.
Yeah, that would not be a bad move either, to find somebody out there that's really throwing up a lot of killer stats. I mean, who's coaching defense at Illinois right now? They're pretty salty.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have a dream hire. I just want somebody that can do what we've seen, and somebody who wants to come coach at Nebraska and doesn't want it to be a stepping stone to a lateral move, which it sure looks like. I don't know, man. I mean, Gus Malzahn's going to go coach offense at Florida State. I guess they've retained Mike Norvell. I haven't seen otherwise.
Yeah.
So, Malzahn can run an offense, and they're paying him a lot of dang money to do it. Tony can run I'd look for Florida State in about a year or two. I'd say that defense is going to be vastly improved next year, right out the gate.
Yeah, I agree.
And if
100%.
somebody like Knighton follows behind him, you're going to get back to that killer defensive front that Florida State was known for back in the 90s and the 2000s. So, which we don't know for sure on Knighton. I keep hearing he's staying. He was supposedly, you told me he was at practice today.
He was at practice today. But
we've
again,
seen an awful lot
I've heard. I'm not one of these guys that pretends to be a super big insider, but I do talk to people that know things. I've heard both. So that's when I say no one knows anything right now. No, I've heard people that I trust very well. One of them told me that he was telling people goodbye and he was on the way out the door, and then he was at practice today. But then I've also heard, oh yeah, he's 100% in. So my opinion, I haven't been checking social media. I haven't talked to people in like an hour or two now, but I don't think very many people know anything about his situation.
If I were to take a guess, if I were to take an educated guess, just based on the fact that James Williams has put himself in the transfer portal, that would probably be the biggest indicator that he's more than likely leaving. I've got a guy. He may be lurking right now. So, hey, my guy, says he's leaving. But like you said, I also heard from a guy who also has a guy and says, yeah, he's thinking he's probably going to stay. And it's like, I think that's probably the one guy that really I have no idea.
Yeah. No, I'm 100% with you. It looks like there was a comment in the chat from Mike that said, as of 7:45, it looked like he will end up going.
Let's see.
I don't know. I don't know. It's tough because at one point yesterday, it felt like it was for sure he was going, and then I feel like it's just kept. He's the one that I have no idea where anything stands, and I think I don't know. I love that about him, but also at the same time, I don't know.
Yeah,
I have no idea, and I don't think very many people do. Maybe when Justin gets in here, he'll have an idea.
He's on his way. I have just got to get him the link. I sent it to his email address, but he's asking me to tweet it. So take a look in your DMs, Mr. Justin. It should be there.
We'll have Justin Adams with the voice of college football hopping on here to talk all things Husker football. So folks who are in the chat right now, get ready because it's about to get crazier.
Yes.
Oh, baby, there he is. He's here. It is the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Justin Adams. What's going on, buddy?
Not too much. I sent some people over too. So
we've seen quite a few we've seen a pretty good numbers tonight, so thank you for that. We appreciate it.
Show went super long, almost 2 hours.
Yeah,
I don't blame
just-
you.
Well, we're
of just
already at
There's
an
a few
hour.
things going on right now.
And yeah, we just got into our second topic of the night. So we're on the current obviously, as you can see, we're on the current staff news. We've been talking a little bit about Tony White. I don't know if you've had your ear to the ground or if you've seen anything out there about where Matt Rule's leaning for a defensive coordinator, Justin.
So I had a breakdown of the few coaches that like I've heard. I just on my show I went into 2 internals and 2 externals, and I'll give you some feedback on them if you'd like, because we've heard a few names floating around. Rob Dvorak, of course. In terms of internal, he would be my preferred option. Of course, I think most people.
Same.
I think most people are in that boat there with him.
Yeah, for internal for sure.
Yeah, if we're going internal, I'd prefer external, but if we go internal,
Yeah,
Rob
agreed.
Dvorak's my number 1 pick.
Agree. He's great player development, ties to the Kansas City area, which is where we're trying to get a good foothold in recruiting, and was named to the 2023 30 under 30 list. So with John Butler, when people talk about Butler, I wanted to see how he did here in terms of his role, and it wasn't the best, but still there was a situation there where he was brought in late in the process. He had never run the 3-3-5 because he was an NFL guy. It's not something you see in the NFL. So when he came on, he talked about how he had to, he wanted to come in and learn the system even before he kind of went to start coaching the players. So he had to come over and kind of learn that while trying to build relationships and coach these players up, and then also dealt with a lot of injuries and stuff like that. So it's not necessarily a hit on his overall coaching ability. I just think the situation didn't allow him to prove himself as much as I'd like.
Yeah.
Now,
fair.
talking about Jim Leonhard, okay, most people see him as the best external option. I think a lot of us are in agreement of that. 42 years old, he's a young coach, has shown a insane ability to coach and consistently have a good offense and develop players. He's a well-respected coach, but Rajiv, I'm friends with Rajiv from Locked On Badgers, and I'm going to tell you exactly what he told me about Jim Leonhard. So he said he's fantastic, was an absolute stud playing for Wisconsin in the NFL. The scheme is predicated on confusing offenses through disguised blitzes, stunts, similar to kind of Tony White. He's an innovator on defense, and any team would be lucky to have him as their DC. From a scheme tactician perspective, you can't go wrong with him. Solid recruiter, but needs to grow in that area. He's beloved by his players, and the Black Shirts would return under him. So that is and then he said he was a walk-on at Wisconsin because he wanted to play there, turned into an all-conference safety, excellent punt returner, played 10 years in the NFL. And so glowing reports about him. So I think Jim Leonhard is without a doubt the best option there. What are we going to say, BA?
Oh, okay, so here's my question for you that I'm just going to pose to you, and this is on the fly in my head. Okay, so if we're talking about just innovative blitzing and all this exotic, different things we can do, that is what we had under Tony White in 2023, and Matt Rule wanted to get away from that in 2020. I feel just talking to people, listening to people on different podcasts, people that are more tuned in than me, talking to people, I can say without a doubt, in my opinion, that Matt Rule wanted to get away from he wanted to be more straight up play.
That's not all he does, though. That is
I
part
agree.
of his plan, and I think Matt Rule would be more intent to bring a young up-and-coming coach who's going to get better and better, and bet on him and his he is without a doubt the best coach, and I don't think he's going to be too keen on I guess put his thumb down too much in that regard if he can get the best coach that he feels available to the team. I think
that's fair. I'm still me personally, you can agree, disagree. I'm still having a hard time wrapping my head around why we switched up things defensively from 2023. That's just I'm struggling with that. I just can't wrap my head around. I'm just of the belief if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And I just can't figure out why we decided to do. I don't know. I don't know if it was bringing in John Butler that played a part of it. I just don't know why we decided to do that and I don't want to say limit Tony White because that sounds like way worse. I'm not saying it in super bad, but I just don't understand why he didn't have full autonomy of that defense like he did in 2000.
No, that's fair point. I totally agree. And I do think we saw a lot of cases to where that did hold us back. And Tony White was able to kind of adjust and just as the good coach he is, and be able to respond after we had bad defensive performance. But I think there's a lot of credence to that for sure. And the last one that I did want to touch on, because I'm hearing people. All right, so here's the deal with Ryan Walters, because I see a lot of people talking about Ryan Walters. So let me, and I know, like, in terms of coach, right? And I know people are talking about, like, I've heard people say, you know, I think he would be a good defensive coordinator because if you look at what he did at Illinois, they had a good defense there. He's just not cut out to be a head coach, but that's not the case. Basically, in conference play, Illinois went from 29 points per game given up in Big Ten play to 22 this year. So their defense improved with him gone. So that's more of a Brett Bielema and Henry thing. That's Bielema. That's his defense, right? And so to look at that, and Ryan Walters wasn't there very long. So, you know, we can't point to that and say, oh, this defense had a good season, therefore good defensive coordinator, bad head coach. That's not the case, because the proof is in the pudding. They improved in the big games without him there. And Illinois and Purdue fans alike do not like him. And when you have a coach who is seen by a lot of Husker fans as a good defensive coordinator, you got to read the tea leaves. And the teams that he has left, and they have a valid reason for this. This is from Illinois Reporter as well. Kind of confirmed this. You know, it was a short tenure, and they don't believe he had a lot to do with that defense at all. So yeah, that's why I think the Ryan Walters thing needs to get out, because I don't think that's a terrible hire in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't think that'll happen. I don't, but
he doesn't have Purdue look that bad by accident.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's not just because he's not a good head coach. Their defense was god awful.
Right.
Yeah. Did you see? I think it was floating around on Twitter. I think it was like a Reddit or some forum post, but it was like if Purdue started with a 34 point head start in every game this year, they would be 6-6.
That's absurd.
I saw that. That is wild. I did see that. I sent that to a whole bunch of people. I was
like, what?
Out loud at that.
and fans are realistically including him on their lists. He's not the top, but I'm just like, get him off of your list.
Nowhere near mine. He played for Colorado, so screw that guy.
Yeah, but even outside of that, that's just trying to
qualifies him already.
But I know in a lot of our opinions that's the case. But like, people are like, putting that aside, you know, this is what I think. No, stop thinking that, because he's not a good defensive coordinator.
Look at the comment that just came in, Ken.
There's a spicy.
What's up, Shane? Appreciate it.
I love it, Shane. Hire Phil Parker. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Well, that reminds me of Robert's comment. He's the Iowa fan that we were chatting with a little bit earlier. Appreciate you tuning in, Robert, if you're still there. Iowa and Wisconsin have a very traditional Big Ten defense. I hope you don't get Jim Leonard.
Most people hope we don't. Yeah. Trust me. Yeah. And you know, there's a couple names floating out there. I stuck to those four because I think those are the four biggest names being thrown out in terms of
what about that one?
So I want to go over there. Jeff Collins, I was just about to mention him. He has experience. He was with Rule at Temple. And so, you know, I think it would be a good hire. But he's just not my first choice. I do think it would be good. He does have that camaraderie with Rule, but I would almost like kind of a clean slate. Jim Leonard is again just a guy who's proven himself, and he can, you know, Brian Walters hasn't proven to be able to develop either, and Jim Leonard has. So it's one of those things, like it's like you have a coach that's 42 and he's been consistently good, and you have a guy like Tony White, and it's very similar to what Tony White did in terms of coaching, because the way these coaches get better is kind of like what Tony White did, where you saw each time his defense, you know, screwed up, he adjusted his scheme in the next game he came out. That's coaching.
Yes, sir.
That's what's going to make Jim Leonhard better. He's going to continue to do that, make those adjustments, and grow as a coach. 42 years old, and as good as he is, as well respected as he is, there's a reason for that, for sure.
There's a name that I've heard from a source. Phil Snow. Has that come up?
I was just about to ask if that was your thoughts,
because
on
he's
that,
been an analyst, right, for basically the entire season, or no?
I don't want it.
I don't want him either.
I hear you. He's what, 70 something?
He's
Yeah,
68.
He's been around for a while.
We need
And
somebody
I don't want
who's
that either.
No,
Him
we
and
need
Butler
somebody
as
who's young.
co-DCs.
Yep.
We need somebody
need the
young, and
co-DC
then
moves.
I just at this point, I don't want to continue the trend of. I hate to be so mean, but I just don't want to continue to see Rule hire his buddies from times of past.
That's why I said I think it would be good for Leonhard to come in and kind of just refresh that slate of connections. For sure.
Yeah. Hey, real quick. We talked about this, Ken and Scott, just a second. I'm just curious on Justin's thoughts. I said, and I think the other guys agreed with me, that this defensive coordinator hire for Matt Rule, in my opinion, could make or break his time at Nebraska, because you can't whiff on this one. You cannot whiff on this one. That's why I am against the John Butler hire, and there's reasons for that. I think you're kind of agreeing with me on that. To me, I think I texted Ken the other day, and I said it on here on the show. If the offense goes perfectly the way that we believe it can under Dana Holgorsen, if we go from losing games 13-10 to losing them 38-35, and we're still looking at 5 or 6 wins, I think that seat gets very hot. And that's why I say I love Matt Rule. I have full faith in that Rule, but you have to get this hire right. I think this hire might be the most important one he's had at Nebraska right now.
He could afford to make those mistakes when he came on. He could afford to make that mistake in year 2. Year 3 is not the year to make that mistake. There is going to be a point where if he doesn't improve next year, that seat is real hot. That's why I think it's in his best interest to try to put personal relationships aside, personal beliefs aside, in terms of him wanting to micromanage the defense and go out and get the best guy we can get. And of course that's going to be Jim Leonhard. So was there anything else like the wide receiver coach hire to nailed that one?
Nailed it.
Nailed that one.
Amazing hire.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, we were good.
Absolutely.
I was about to
talking about Tank Dell.
Yeah, I was about to flip the script and start talking about Dana Holgorsen being hired on for 2 years for the OC.
Love it.
Love it. And part of that discussion was going to be his new wide receivers coach. But let's just go through.
Okay, I just wasn't sure if y'all talked about it yet. That's all. Sorry.
Yep, no problem. Dana Holgorsen's numbers just as an offensive coordinator. 4 years he spent as an OC before he took a head coaching job. These are his average rankings and numbers he put up in those 4 years. He averaged 42 points a game in 4 years as an offensive coordinator. That averaged 5th in the country. Total yards second at 544.28 yards. His teams were either first or second in the country all 4 years in passing yards at 412.8 per game. And his rushing yards was 131.5 was his average, mostly because his first year as an OC, he averaged less than 60. But his last year, he averaged over 170, which averaged out to be about 71st in the country. Based on the averages back then. So we're getting a guy that knows how to coach offense. He's had some of the best pass catchers the game has ever seen. He's put, 50 people in the NFL during his time as a coach in college. Coached 30 some All-Americans, something like that.
Yeah.
So the guy he knows his ball. And you know what? I'm pretty sure Troy Dannon was pretty instrumental in saying, Matt, you need to get this guy locked down. Got to get this guy locked down, and you better not miss on the DC call, because the guy you just hired has experience doing what you're doing now and has a lot of success doing it.
And taking it back to last offseason, we were already in discussions with Holgorsen last offseason. So that was something that we were going after too. So I think it helped that we already had that relationship established. But yeah, if you look at his 2016 offense at West Virginia, rushing number wise, I think he had a game there, went over 300 yards rushing, 260 was his average there. The air raid is something that, and he's a smart enough coach to where he keeps elements of the air raid, but also transitions it to the modern college football world. But the air raid schemes are the biggest thing, is spreading the field out wide as you can, making defenders cover grass. So you spread them out as wide as you can to get them out of the box, and that opens up the middle of the field. You tack that short middle of the field.
Get that ding and dunk.
Yeah, we had gone from 21% in the UCLA game to the 0 to 9 yard range in terms of targeting it to 50% by Wisconsin game.
Wisconsin game. Yeah.
And so,
yep. That's an interesting comment right there. Do you see Holgorsen bringing in some big guns at wide receiver, maybe another stud running back for this offense with some of the portal news that's comes out lately that have some guys that are somewhat connected to him? That young kid down in Houston who's going into the portal, the running back. I think he's got a year left. Big dude, fast.
I think we should definitely look. Yeah, I think we should definitely. Wide receivers, one, I think we have to hit in the portal. We need experience at wide receiver. And I'm talking about like upperclassman experience that has been proven, because that's a must. I love wide receiver coach hire, and we got to get him. Now there's going to be probably some recruits potentially coming over. I think I saw in my notes here, he was the primary recruiter of Jerian Miller, 4-star over there at Kentucky. But in terms of the portal, I think he's definitely want to go out and get somebody for sure. And just excited what he can do with the playmakers, because you saw what he did with, Tank Dell was a complete anomaly under Holgorsen, and him developing him into the player that he is in the NFL now, because he was 170 pounds at like 5'8", and it's incredible what he was able to do with him. But also, the ties to Dykel Short's ties to Holgorsen. He played for him at West Virginia, went into the NFL for a little bit. Then Holgorsen hired him at Houston, and he's been one of the up and coming coaches. He was on the 30 coaches under 30 list too. So great hire overall. And I just think I think at this point, they're going to be targeting somebody in that portal who's a playmaker.
For sure. Do you foresee, either of you guys, and you, Scott, do you guys foresee any other changes on the offensive staff by Holgorsen, or is he going to just go with wide receiver and let's get her going, boys?
Go ahead, Bia. I'll let you tell them.
I definitely foresee it. I feel weird talking about, but I definitely feel like there has the potential to be a quarterback's coach change. I feel like there's potential there. Maybe not. I don't know. I don't have any inside information that something's definitely happening. I feel like that is another hire that needs to be a home run. And I definitely think that to me, that's a big hire for me. I would like to see an upgrade at, and I don't mean that as any negative towards anybody. It's business at the end of the day. And I feel like I feel like that's a coaching thing that we really need to get right under. I would feel very confident, honestly, if Dana Holgorsen said, I'm the quarterback's coach, right? And I'd feel good with that.
I was just going to ask that.
I think that is maybe a possibility. Again, I'm just kind of speculating, kind of going off top of my head here, but I would definitely think that. I assume, I don't know this. I don't know. Do we think we end up getting a new tight ends coach, or do we see Sat staying on? I don't know.
That's a tough one.
Go ahead, Scott.
I was just going to say that I have a feeling that we're just going to end up having an all new coaching staff on offense, probably besides Raiola. I just don't, unless there's something internally we are unaware of, that the philosophical differences between maybe EJ Barthel and our previous offensive coordinator Satterfield, maybe there was a reason why we didn't see as much productivity out of a running back room. Could have it been Satterfield, or could have it been EJ, or was it by committee? They both were just not good at either of their jobs. But I don't see any reason why, or I'm not going to be too upset or really upset at all if EJ Barthel ends up getting told that he's not with the staff anymore and Dana gets a different running backs coach. And I guess it's really just up to Dana. Does he want his own guys in there? And from what I can understand about him, he probably does. What he was able to see I'm in the camp that I think that our offensive line took an improvement this year. That I thought they looked pretty decent last year, all things considered. And that was kind of a hot take of mine last year, just because of how abysmal our offense looked. I didn't really see it as an offensive line issue exclusively. And then this year, I thought that our pass protection improved throughout the year. I just think it was I could get really deep into this, so I'm not going to. I'll just in short, I'll say that our offensive line, I don't think needs a change in the coach this year. I think our running backs room needs a change. And as much as I would like to see Coach Rule keep his friend and his buddy here, I just don't know if the respect of the players is going to remain the same for Satterfield. I think that there's probably a cultural shift now in the culture of the players. Do they trust Coach Satterfield? If he proved himself to be incompetent as an offensive coordinator, are you going to be able to trust him to be a position coach? I don't know. But my feel is that we see pretty much the entire offensive coaching staff change as time goes on.
So kind of my take on this too, and you got to believe that in the discussions and negotiations, Holgorsen threw that in there, that he wants control of this. The thing about Glenn Thomas, I'm not completely out on Glenn Thomas. That's not to say he's not going to be out, but I think Glenn Thomas's track record speaks for itself. Of course, he coached Matt Ryan to 2 of his 3 Pro Bowls. He's got a track record of success, and he was brought on last season, but I still think it's so hard to evaluate because so much of what
that's fair.
happened to Raiola was in the offensive play calling. And
that was kind of what I was trying to get to there.
Yeah. And I think we saw that in the fact that, Glenn Thomas always says calm feet equal calm mind. And we saw Raiola's feet really calm down under the time that Holgorsen was here. And as he developed, because he was getting him rhythm, like he was using that short part of the field, getting him in rhythm. And he was just a lot more efficient, a lot more comfortable. So, I don't know if necessarily he's going to want to bring in his guys or not. He might, but I don't necessarily think Glenn Thomas is. I don't think we've seen the full story on Glenn Thomas necessarily.
Yeah. No, I do agree, but so here's where the only reason I even have the question is, like you said, as soon as Dana Holgorsen came in there, I felt like the footwork got a lot better from Dylan Raiola, and the eyes got a lot better from Dylan Raiola. So my question is, was it a Dana Holgorsen thing, or was it? Do you get what I don't? I don't know if that's a coincidence, is what I'm trying to say.
He made the reads easier for him.
Yes, 100%.
Got the ball out of his hands quicker, which helped the offensive line as well.
Yes, and I do agree. I feel like it's hard to judge a lot of the offensive. If you want my opinion, I think it's hard to judge a lot of the offensive positional coaching staff.
Yes.
Yeah, I think even Garrett McGuire. Like I don't even know. I understand that it was, probably a good move to move on. I just don't know if we really got a fair look at him as a wide receiver coach just based on the offensive coordinator we had.
100% agreed, because we saw just how incompetent he was, just because Holgorsen came in and really didn't even fully implement his system. He just had to marry parts of his system to what we were already doing, and it still was a night and day improvement. He just simplified it. And I think I taught, you probably did too, BA, a lot over the season. It was just like, if we can't execute, why are we doing more, like mixing up stuff more? Why don't we just focus on the fundamentals and what we do well and stick to that? Because if we're not executing, it's not going to work. It's never going to work. So go to what we can execute, go to the plays that are, working in practice, that we're executing well in practice, and bring those to the table. And Holgorsen did a lot of that. Just simplified everything, made Dylan's reads way easier, got the ball in his hands quicker. That took pressure off the offensive line. That got him in a rhythm. That got the defense out of the box. It got him spread out across the field, and Dylan was able to operate better. And two, with his eyes, he wasn't like you said, he wasn't reading the field well, because you can tell when he got lurked by a couple linebackers, that's not reading the field. That's when he's not reading the field well. But we didn't see that in those games. We saw a couple overthrows, which the ball was jumping out of his hands there. But that to me is just. He'll kind of be able to reel that in over time, but it just in terms of his happy feet in the pocket and stuff like that, I think it was just like he knew that he had to hurry up and make a read and put his eyes down. And that allowed him to not read the field because he was already feeling, he was seeing ghosts back there. He was feeling pressure every snap. And even when there wasn't pressure, he still was expecting pressure. And so when your quarterback's thinking, he's not reading and reacting. You can't be thinking on the field or you're going to be a step behind every time.
Yeah. And I think that's a perfect indictment of how just bad we had as an offensive coordinator, that you could see from the first few games that all we were seeing from Raiola was just this pure raw talent.
Yep.
And then as soon as the dominoes started to fall, okay, he's losing trust and confidence in the play calling. All right, he's losing trust and confidence in the schemes. Okay, he's losing trust and confidence of his players being able to execute the routes correctly. Okay, now he's losing confidence in the timing of things. And you could just almost see it like a positive feedback loop. And then you just suddenly he looked like a 3-star low-end quarterback that's thrown into a situation that he's not prepared for. And then as soon as somebody comes in and, like you were saying, just simplified the system and made it fundamental again, all of a sudden he now, within 3 games, looked like a quarterback that was at the very least competent and confident. So yeah.
And the run game took a lot of pressure off him. Having a run game took so much pressure off of him because defenses were pinning the ears back. And they knew a lot of what we were going to run because, like the Ohio State receiver said, like they saw that play they picked off the end. They saw that on tape. It wasn't, he was trying to mix it up too much, but wasn't still at the same time mixing it up enough. I don't know how that happens. I really don't. It's just insane to me.
Well,
but
it seemed like, for me, watching a Satterfield coached offense, and it looked like the play calling didn't have rhythm. It just seemed like it was okay, so that kind of worked. Let's try this now. And it just didn't. And it seemed like when Holgorsen got in here, especially that Wisconsin game, that first drive down the field, it was like, oh, wow, that's cool. I could see why he did that. This is a great run action off this same pass play, blah, 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 blah. Next thing you knew, we're down the field, we're scoring, and it just didn't stop that day. And it looked like we could do that again against Iowa. But Phil Parker, being a great defensive coordinator, made some adjustments. And of course, once the snowball started rolling, the here we go again snowball, I think that just really affected the end of that game. But I don't want to go back there. I don't want to talk about it anymore. We're done with that now, Justin.
But it still happened. It's still a lot of the same things happened versus Iowa. We were moving the ball consistently. Just weren't scoring. And so, there that will come in time. But that's kind of why I made that post where, and Iowa fans came after me pretty hard. That went pretty crazy. But it's like, when between Iowa and Nebraska, when they, winning the game is important. Yes, 100%. We would have loved to win the game. But when they go in that film room, Iowa's going to have to watch themselves get dominated on the tape. When we go in the film room, we're going to see ourselves really having our way with Iowa. Which team would you rather be in the future? You'd rather be the team that has the good tape to pull from. Current in that situation, you'd rather be the team that wins. But long term, you want to be the team that played the best on the field. And that was Nebraska. Outside of those few plays, if we win that game, we're singing a whole different tune. Everybody's hunky-dory, happy-go-lucky. But the results involve, they bring in emotion, and then therefore people react on emotion. And to say like, oh, this is what Iowa does, Iowa just softens you up. They
didn't.
They just waited.
They just waited for us to do something.
Make a mistake.
Or not do something.
Yep. They picked up the ball, we dropped it, as I put it on.
For sure.
Picked up the ball, we dropped it.
So we got another comment in here. Have we heard anything on the special teams? We kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, Justin, but have we heard anything about Ed Foley's status and whether or not there's some names out there that could be brought in either to help him out or to replace him at all?
As far as names go, I'll have to get an update on that. But in terms of what the plan is with Foley, he's going to remain on the staff.
That's what I've heard as well.
He'll remain on the staff, but he's not going to be the special teams coach.
Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. So it could be one of those things where, I'm not sure if he wants to kind of move somebody around internal, but yeah, I'll try to get some names on that for y'all. But yeah, that's of course that had to happen. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that.
Yeah, because I didn't see any tangible improvement.
It got worse in terms of execution. It got worse
as the year went on. Yeah, other than John Hull making a lot of kicks. Overall,
individually on a micro level, there were some things to look at, but on a macro level, there was nothing.
Yeah, you can't be making in this at this point. You can't be having clear snap issues that often, or the mistakes that often. It's not, that wasn't where he needed to be. And so hopefully they find a good spot for him and a good role for him, similar to Garrett McGuire, where they're probably going to put him some kind of recruiting role because he has those ties to Texas, builds great relationships with players, as we saw. I just think he's a little too young to be where he was. And I think Foley was just kind of in over his head as a special teams coach.
Sure.
For sure.
Okay. Well, let's unless we've got any other staff news that we need to talk about, I think that's pretty much it. That's where we're at this point as far as current status, isn't it, with the staff?
Yeah, that's
if you're listening to this tomorrow, this might be outdated.
This subject
very, very well could be,
as we've seen,
and as is the next topic, which is the players that have entered the portal over the last couple of days. How concerned on a level of 1 to 10 are you guys with the fact that a lot of these key players like Jamari Butler, Prince Williman Mackay Bayer, and James Williams today on that front part of the defense? How concerned are you that those guys are moving on? Or did you see these as maybe being part of that 40 and 50 guys that have got to move on in order to get down to the 105?
I'm not overly concerned, and I don't know. Maybe I'd love to hear Justin's kind of overall thoughts. I think maybe we disagree a little bit. I am not concerned. I am not worried. I do not think the sky is falling. However, I genuinely do not think that losing Jamari Butler was part of the plan. When we talk about losing 30, 40, 50 guys in the portal, however many, I just have a hard time. I don't know if anyone can convince me that we are planning on losing Jamari Butler. I don't think anyone can convince me we're planning on losing Mackay Bayer, right? I just have a hard time believing that. Some of the other guys, I think maybe, you might be able to convince me of that. Those two in particular, I don't see how you can convince me, oh, yes, this was part of the plan all along. When we're talking about these guys entering the portal, these are some of the guys we had. To me, that was not part of the plan, especially when it comes to, we're already going to lose Ty Robinson. We're going to lose Nash Hutmaker. I just don't see how you can convince me that, oh, yeah, I'm not saying we're not going to be okay. I'm not saying that, but I'm just going to have a hard time being convinced of, oh, yeah, that's fine. We planned on this. I just don't believe that.
I agree with you there. The one caveat I have to that, and this is kind of what probably could be maybe misconstrued about this. I talked about this on my show. Was it's definitely not part of the plan to lose those guys. However, it is part of the process of losing a defensive coach, and it's part of the process of the portal. It's not always going to be the guys you want to leave. And in most cases, it never is, especially when you have a coaching change. So to me, it's about limiting the damage. And I think so far we've done a good job of that. Because two, I don't expect a ton of more people to leave in terms of big name guys like that, or guys that we don't expect to enter the portal. Again, that's subject to change every day, but I don't expect it. I think we've lost a lot of what the big hitters that we can expect to lose, and those do hurt. And in no way is that ever part of your plan to lose your key contributors. But I think it's the inevitable part of making a coaching change. And I think that's the sacrifice you make for the better long-term, the betterment of the long-term, for sure.
Yeah, I think I think it's exactly what you said, that when you pair losing your defensive coordinator with the imposed roster limits all happening at the same time, we're just going to see a lot of attrition in ways that are not ideal. I don't think we were going to get away with any of this unscathed. I didn't foresee with Tony White leaving for it to just be our third and fourth stringers all leaving. I think if Tony White would have stayed, if he would have stayed for one more year, which I don't blame him for leaving, the vacancy position opening up at Florida State, I think is a job that he really wanted. So, all right, go do your thing, man.
Yep.
If he would have stayed for another year, I don't think a lot of these names that are concerning for Husker fans would be in the portal right now, for obvious reasons. It just stinks that the timing of it didn't bode in Nebraska's favor. It's not going to bode for, I don't think, any team that has a prominent walk-on program and a defensive coordinator leaving at the same time that the roster limits are limited. You're just going to have that kind of result. It is what it is. It's unfortunate. I agree. It's not really a sky is falling thing for me, because it's just ultimately it's nothing we can control. And in all reality, like I know that people say this and they say it with such a dagger. I say this as softly as I can. Like I really mean this in the most respectful way possible, that I just want the guys that want to be here. Yep. The guys that want to hang around and see this program elevate.
It should be your focus. Yep.
If their concerns are strictly their coach that they like, or they feel like their talents could be better utilized elsewhere, by all means, go do that, man. Like, it's your life. Like, if you see the success of your career being elevated by making these different moves, like you're an autonomous adult, go do that, man. Like, I hold no resentment in my heart for that. But for me as a fan, I just want the guys that want to wear the N on their helmet and feel some sense of pride and belonging to that and that alone. Not a coach, not a program, not a career. Those things are kind of secondary in my eyes, but that's because I'm a fan. And so, like that's my thoughts on that, I guess. I don't know.
You got to have the guys that are bought in. And if they're not bought in, wish them farewell, wish them the best, and let them go. And another thing to that too, just for people's know in this, nobody's in the portal officially till December 9th. It opens in. I think grad transfers are able to enter whenever they want, but they can make their intentions known, but nobody's actually in the portal just yet too. So that's a distinction I just want some people, in the audience to know as well. So
for certain, the thought that struck me as you were speaking, did you think, because we're talking about part of the plan, whether they were not part of the plan, things like that, Daniel Kaelin entering the portal, or intending to enter the portal, I guess, on December 9th, if you want to get technical about it. Is that a guy that you would say, this was probably a guy we were probably going to encourage to go that direction?
Yes, 100%.
I agree.
Yeah. Because if he didn't get a chance to play in any game, even when Raiola was really beat up, it seems to me he had some work to do to get to see the field anyway.
And I really like TJ Lateef coming in. And I think that is a big part of it. I think it was in his best interest to go. And I think Matt Rule wanted to, at this point, do what was in his best interest. And I think Daniel Kaelin naturally wanted to do what was in his best interest. Like, he wants to play. And who could blame him? It's just, it's a situation where it's not an easy route. It's going to be a very, very difficult path for him to be a starting quarterback here. Yeah. And he saw that. He's too talented to sit here behind people.
I agree. I feel like he has the potential and too talented to just sit on the bench for 4 or 5 years. So absolutely. I agree. This is probably the best move for him. And I do really, truly wish him well.
And I respect the fact that he knew going into this situation it was not advantageous in his favor. He
stuck it out.
He could have absolutely not committed to Nebraska, knowing that there's a 5-star quarterback coming in here and he's going to pretty much be the de facto guy unless proven otherwise. So the fact that he even came here to try and lick his chops and show his pedigree as a quarterback, like, I have the most respect for the fact that he even gave it his best go. And that's not to I'm not saying that as like like oh, there was no way you could have done it, because I could have totally seen a way that Danny Kaelin could have taken everything given to him and
very
ended up at the
small,
top.
very, very small chance for sure.
Yes, but there was a chance. If Sutton, there's we can go through all of the speculation of that, but I think ultimately, it was really, really good that he kind of knew where he was at. He knew where he rated. The time window that he could have slid in as a starting quarterback was going to be very, very small, a very tiny blip in the seasons to come history. So yeah, like you said, with TJ Lateef coming in here, he just would have had too much work cut out for him. So it is what it is. Absolutely.
And you know, along with that too, the recruiting situation with him, you know, he was committed to Missouri. And then whenever, you know, Raiola decided to commit to Georgia, he came back into the class, and credit to him for sticking it out, because we thought he was going to leave. And that shows his confidence in his character, and his, like, he didn't take the easy road. He wanted to battle. And he came in here and he trusted himself, and he wanted to battle it out. He did, and he did the best he could. That in the day it didn't work out. Yeah, for sure. So I respect him to, you know, unbelievably. And that's rare in modern college football to see somebody do that at his high recruiting level and his talent level.
Do you guys want me to, I just want to play a little fun game here of Husker fan.
Yeah.
Oh God, I hate that I'm doing this. Could you foresee a situation as a Husker fan where in 4 years we are looking back at Dylan Raiola's tenure here, and it doesn't necessarily equate into large amounts of success, and maybe transfers out at some point, and Danny Kaelin is having, let's say, a Joe Burrow type of situation somewhere? How terrible would that, that just seems like something that would happen to us. I don't mean to get all weird and like hypothetical here, but that's just like, that would just be the most Nebraska thing to have happen to us. It would just add the icing on the cake of the last, you know, decade, basically. I don't know why I brought that up. It's just like I was sitting there thinking about that last night when I was like, okay, Daniel Kaelin is probably leaving. Or when was I thinking about this? I think it was a couple nights ago. I was like, Daniel Kaelin's probably leaving. He's going to go somewhere and be like a Heisman quarterback. And then somehow Dylan Raiola is going to get shafted here in some way through some coaching anomaly. He's going to transfer somewhere else. And then we're just going to be sitting here just like, what in the world is going on?
I would have been a lot more worried about that had we not got Dana Holgorsen locked up. Get where you're coming from. With Dana Holgorsen here, I don't worry about it as much, but that's just me.
Go ahead, Ken.
I was just going to say, can you imagine what it would have been like to have like an Adrian Martinez here with an actual quarterback coach?
Oh, geez.
With an actual offensive coordinator that wasn't a buddy from UCF, you know, and had a defense to back it up.
I think Scott Frost would have ruined it anyways.
Personally. Yeah, well, yeah, we
but true,
there's always that. But yeah, you get somebody. I like the fact that you've got, it's a hypothetical that certainly could become reality if the past is any kind of a teacher for all of us.
Yeah.
But I don't believe that to be true. I think it's more true that maybe Rule completely botches the DC hire, which is really hard for me to fathom because he's never had a bad defense. Even his NFL defenses were some of the best in the league. He just couldn't figure out how to score. He couldn't figure out how not to lose one-score games. Go figure.
Yep.
But I think it's more likely that he might botch that DC hire, even though he thinks he's got the right guy. And then next thing you know, we're trying to outscore people 42-41, like Coach was saying, and we can't. So then Dylan's like, gosh, I love playing in this offense, but I got no defense. I'm out. I'm going back to Georgia or something like that. That I could see. But then again, I don't like playing that game because that's negativity that we throw out in the Nebraska universe that we just don't need anymore. I'm kind of done with it.
Just to go to Scott's hypothetical too. One of the things, Scott, that, when you brought up Joe Burrow, I don't think even if that happened, we should look at that as a mistake. Here's why. Hindsight's always 20/20. Joe Burrow was not Joe Burrow whenever he was wanting to come. He was not a highly coveted. He was a 3-star transfer. We had a room full of 4-star quarterbacks. Hindsight, Joe Burrow might not have been that at Nebraska. Look at the wide receiver talent he had there.
He would have not been what he was.
But in hindsight, 2020, again, he was rated lower as a transfer than the guys that we had in that quarterback room. So we can't sit there and dwell on that. The same in this situation. We got to go back to the situation. Who is the clear guy that you run with in this situation? Dylan Raiola. You make that decision, you don't look back.
Yep.
For sure. For certain. Well, I think we're pretty much wrapped up the players in the portal. We want to move on to probably one of Justin's things that he's really looking forward to tomorrow. I don't know what all you talked about on your show tonight, Justin, because I was preparing for mine, so I apologize if you touched anything on signing day. Do you have some expectations for tomorrow of guys that could surprise, that do sign, or guys that you think are signing that are going to go, nah, I'm out, I'm following Tony to FSU? I know, who is it, Merritt is going to FSU? Or was that somebody else?
Merritt staying.
Merritt staying.
Chase Lofton was already committed to FSU, but that was an uphill battle from the start. I didn't like our odds throughout that process. That was going to be a battle to the end. A couple days ago, I heard we can expect, big news, and we're going to be pleasantly surprised, but I've got no names. And so with me, here's my thing on it. Cortez Mills. I knew about the Cortez Mills stuff a couple days in advance. I had retweeted the Hayes Fawcett kind of like rumor thing, or that little GIF he posted. But with Hayes Fawcett now, he posts that for like 3 stars, so you never know if that's the case. But it coincided with me hearing about the Cortez Mills stuff. And then, of course, over the last couple of days, we saw the potential that Cortez Mills was going to stay at Oklahoma, but then he got a ton of crystal balls late last night. So I'm fully expecting Cortez Mills to come into this class. Again, these things change so much by the day with Michael Terry. Let's talk about that. Last-ditch effort at the NIL with Oregon. I talked to a friend of mine from Locked On Ducks who said that they're throwing a package out there for him that's going to be big time. However, I still think with Nebraska and Texas, the couple things with Michael Terry to know, with Texas, it's always been kind of a proximity to home thing for him, because that was really a big part of his recruiting process and what he wanted originally. The thing with him is he wanted to commit in the summertime. And Nebraska kind of extended that because they got him out for a visit early in their season. And then he scheduled a visit back to Texas because Nebraska really made him think. So the longer it went in the process, the more I like Nebraska's odds from the start. And Oregon was very much in the picture then too. The things that he talked about, he preferred the way Nebraska was going to utilize him in their offense. But Texas had the proximity to home. And of course, they have insane resources in terms of NIL. They have money for days. So with them, they're always in it until the very last second. I do think it's a 2-horse race because he did say NIL is not his most important factor. I think but a lot of players say that. But I truly believe with him, NIL is not a problem. Michael Terry is going to make money wherever he goes, and he's going to probably make it in the NFL. He's just that type of player. I truly believe coming into tomorrow, where he's announcing his commitment, of course, can't remember what time.
I think it was like 8:15. I don't know.
I think that's right.
It was early. It was early, I feel like.
I think it's right. I just can't remember what time zone either. Yeah, I think you're right at 8:15. I knew it was something 15.
Yeah.
I truly believe that's 50-50 now. There was a few days ago where I thought it would be like 70-30 Nebraska. And then as of yesterday and the day before, I probably would have put that about, 40, 60. I truly believe this is a 50-50 race, and it's all and I think I do feel, and I've said this on your show, I think we talked about this before when I came on, that I really feel like there is a good shot that we get him. And I think the hiring of the wide receiver coach, because he has ties to Texas, and I think that's big. And I think the timing of that was important. And I think that honestly gives us the best shot at the end of the day to land him. And, there was some stuff earlier I saw, I can't remember where, about him following, our wide receiver coach as well. And so, trying to read the tea leaves doesn't always work, but I do feel like Nebraska has a really good shot. It's just a gut feeling of mine that Nebraska has a really good shot at him. And so but I don't want to jump the gun and say, I think Nebraska, but I truly believe this is 50-50 as it gets. Absolutely. And the only person that knows right now is him. And that's why there's nobody really dropping any crystal balls or any information, because this is one of those things that we've heard what packages are offering, what, kind of in relation to what he wants. And then, so we're hearing back and forth on that, but nobody truly knows. But if you ask me, I think it's 50-50, 100%. I think it's 50-50. But I think Nebraska is very, very much in this, and more so in it than they were a couple days ago.
So where does this class rank at this point with what is probably signing tomorrow? Where do you see this class ending up?
So
overall, once they're done,
I don't think we're going to be losing people from this class. I think that would have happened already. I think we are in store for a pretty good signing day from what I hear. And the thing about that is this class is probably naturally going to be on the smaller side. We had a little bit of a bigger class last year. So in terms of recruiting rankings go, that's one of those things where recruiting rankings matter to an extent, but the average matters more. Because numbers are going to very much, like 24/7 numbers are going to very much affect that, how many recruits you have. It's the quality of recruit. And I think this class is going to have a good, in terms of quality of recruit, I think it's going to be a really, really good class. And I think it's going to put us in a really good position in the future. And I think we're going to get a lot of the guys that we're targeting. I heard there was a wide receiver commit coming in a few days ago. I heard the day of the Cortez Mills stuff. I'd heard that we had a wide receiver backup plan ready to rock and roll. But then I was hearing that it was potentially the guy who played with Raiola at Buford, and he ended up, he was at Louisville, but then he ended up deciding to go to Georgia Tech, and he was supposed to come out to Nebraska and visit. And I think that was where the details were going to be discussed. But before he could do that, he ended up committing to Georgia Tech. So a couple things have changed in the last couple days, but with the movement here, I think it's really, really, I think this is the hardest national signing day to predict in a while because of the offensive changes that we had kind of right here at the buzzer with the wide receiver coach and stuff like that as well. And then also, things change with Lofton staying, because this class is supposed to hit a certain amount of numbers. I do believe we're going to get about 15 players in the portal, maybe more, but I think there's going to be intentional with this early national signing day, and we're going to go after the guys that we're targeting heavily. And I think we've put our eggs in that basket, but I do think we're in store for a really good signing day.
Sounds good. You guys have any thoughts on that? Any other questions?
I personally don't. Justin nailed it per usual.
Appreciate it.
Recruiting is just one of those things. I think I said this last time we discussed this, Justin, that I think it's incredibly fascinating that you just you fixate on it and you dig and you find the nuggets, the golden nuggets. And that's something I just don't have. I love snooping in the recruiting stuff and seeing what's going on. But yeah, I'm just excited to see what this class can do for Nebraska in the future.
100%.
I know that goes without saying, but
seriously,
this is
because it has potential to be a program changing class, even if the numbers are a little less,
Yep.
Sure.
So
sure. Absolutely. It does. I mean, you could potentially have another 5-star in here to play with Dylan this next season. And there's no ifs, ands, or buts. Michael Terry signs, he's playing next year.
Yes.
You know, there's
Yeah.
no ifs, ands, or buts about that, which
yeah.
kind of leads us to the next topic, which is bowl game destinations. And the sense that, and the reason I say it kind of leads into that is because these kids who sign early, they're going to have the opportunity to actually participate in bowl prep.
Mhm.
Does that mean they're also eligible to play, or they only can participate in the bowl prep? I don't understand
I don't believe
particular side of it.
I could be wrong. My understanding is they cannot play in the game, but they can participate in the preparation.
Same thing.
Okay.
Same. That's that. I think that's the case. And the number is 13 that are going to do that. 13 players.
The number is 13. Okay.
Mhm.
Golly, 13. Is that more than we had last year, that early arrival?
I'd have to go back and see because I can't remember off the top of my head. I've slept a lot since then. So, but yeah, I know it's 13 for this year.
Well, if you had a dream bowl destination of the ones that are kind of on the table, you know, you're hearing Pinstripe now since we lost to frickin' Iowa.
Yep.
God forbid we have to go there, because I'll just watch that crap from the warmth of my house. Thank you very much.
I know. I know.
But if I had my druthers, I'd love to come hang out in Phoenix with you, Justin, go to the Rate Bowl.
Yeah.
If I had my, because I can parlay that into a Christmas trip to go see my folks,
That of
you
course,
know, and my brother and stuff. So that would be my hope, or Music City. I'd love to go back to Nashville.
Those are my
Nashville's
two as
cool.
well.
Yeah, I just talked about on my show. My preferred destination, being in Arizona, would be to come out here. But I think in terms of just fan experience and going to a place that is awesome to go to and experience, Nashville, 100%. I think New York is the worst possible scenario, without question.
Isn't that the truth? Yeah, give me Nashville all day.
Yeah,
all day, or Phoenix.
I think we're pretty much all in agreement there for sure.
The Rate Bowl, that's played at what is it, Chase Field, or what do they call? It used to be Bank One.
It's Chase.
Okay, Chase. It's still
baseball field.
Yep.
So
I got to go to
I'm about
quite a few games there. That was cool.
Minutes from that. So,
yep.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Very cool. So you'd have an extra spot for me to crash. Then that's a good thing.
This is my guest bedroom, so blow up an air mattress for you.
Blow up an air mattress and don't touch your shit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just stay away from my equipment. Actually, I'm probably gonna have you just rearrange so you can. I mean, you clearly know what you're doing with studios, so I just feel like, while you're here, fix it for me.
At the Adams Airbnb. All right, exactly. Sounds good.
Not much
amenities, probably be 4 or 5 people with me.
you gotta listen to me play piano. So
that'll work. You could teach me something about that.
Let's do it.
All right, dude. Anything else, guys? How about you, Scott? Do you have a bowl destination you hope Nebraska goes to?
Nope. As long as we win, I don't really. It's kind of like hard to. Like, I know I'm not going to travel to any of the bowl games. So I've already kind of like eliminated that as a like a make or break. Although I would not want to do the Pinstripe Bowl just because aesthetically, it's just such an awkward game to look at on TV or in person. No, as long as we win it, I really don't mind. It's going to be surreal. My thought is like, guys, we're going to a bowl game. This is weird. This is strange. Yeah. I haven't had this feeling for 8 years. This is a weird feeling. And I hate Iowa so much. They really ruined my excitement, like the potential. Like I'm still like here, but I could have been up here with my level of excitement.
Yeah.
True.
But now I'm at this baseline of just like, yay, we're at a bowl game, but that really just added a certain level of stank to it I wasn't too fond of. But
are we becoming like Ohio State now, where they could go?
No.
1 and
We're not
11
there yet.
every year, and as long as the one is Ohio State, we're going to be happy. Or as long as the one is Iowa, we're going to be happy. No, I'm not that guy.
No.
That's
You
not
know,
our
yeah,
program.
losing to Iowa stung and it hurts, and it's like, yeah, I know the bowl game's probably not going to be as good, but maybe it's going to be the same bowl regardless. Difference is we just lost to Iowa. I guess I've kind of gotten to the point now where I'm numb enough to it, and I know the program is trending in the right direction, and I know the fact that Iowa has pasted some common opponents that we have beaten, and then they couldn't do anything against us. That just, you know, we're headed in the right way. We're headed in the right direction. Got to nail that DC hire, though. Got to nail that DC hire. So as we wrap things up here, guys, Justin, where can folks find you out there on, and where they can find your content? And we really, really appreciate you participating with us tonight.
Of course. Yeah, y'all can find me over at Nebraska Football at the Voice of College Football. Just subscribe over there. I'm almost at 6K subs, so I'm trying to get there. But again, I'm bad at self-promotion. I'm horrible at that. So yeah, but if y'all, like what I do, like my stuff over there, go ahead, give me a subscribe over there, and you can follow me at _H-Town Husker here. And then also upcoming, I'm going to be the film guy on a new Voice of College Football recruiting channel we got coming up. So stay tuned for that. So y'all can follow me on X for updates on that as well. So
Big Ten show, right?
And the Big Ten show, but we're going to get that ramped back up in the off season. So my buddy Sonny, who's my co-host, he had to take on the Locked On Illini channel and build that up. And so his focus was a lot in that. And we got our channel monetized, but we're really going to restructure in the summer, hit it hard. So
Sweet.
Big Ten show on YouTube as well. So
sounds good. Coach, where can folks find you and your content?
You go to basically any social media platform, type in at the BA Coaches Show. I will be on there. If you'd like to check out my YouTube, we put out stuff about weekly. And if you would like, sometimes my thoughts are better structured in like a written format. So if you go to nbnrpodcast.com, I'm one of the writers for the blog Red Zone Reflections. Sometimes my thoughts just are a little bit more clear and concise and less ranty when they're written. So I think it's a good blog. I get good feedback on it. So that's not just me saying that.
it's good.
So
it is outstanding.
Go check out all the stuff there. And I do appreciate all the support ever since I've been on this channel and on Justin's channel. My support's been blowing up, and I appreciate that.
Of course, man. Hey, like I said, we pushed people to your channel, but you did the rest. So you're the reason they stay.
Absolutely. And 1620 The Zone, 8 a.m. on Mondays. You're going to keep doing that with Gary Sharp?
It'll be more periodically. It might not be every Monday, but it'll be periodically. But I don't know what the show's going to be called starting next week. It will not be the Gary Sharp Show, but I do not know what the show is called.
So he's apparently got another co-host then? Or they're just going to change up the name?
I don't know. All I was told is it's no longer going to be the Gary Sharp Show, but I do not know what's going to happen there.
All righty.
So let's go over there and stay tuned.
Well, that's right. Scott, you're lurking on Twitter, right?
Yep.
And that's
still lurking. And speaking of lurking, Steven Sipple posted as of 5 minutes ago, hint on bowl outlook, bring a winter coat.
Oh man.
Yeah, well, not going then. Too old for that cold.
I'm not built for the cold, man. I've only been in hot environments.
Nope, definitely not. Well, you can follow our show at Gen Red Pod on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Subscribe to Generation Red on your favorite podcast app so you could catch the audio for this show and all of our previous shows, including our first season when we were only audio podcast. Please like and subscribe. Make sure you are interacting with us either in the live chat during our live streams or by leaving a comment down below on the on-demand video. It helps other Husker fans find our content. And don't forget about our Generation Red merch. It's now available on our website. Go to genredpod.com and click the link in the gray bar at the top of the page. We really appreciate everybody who stuck around this long. We have 208 people that are in here watching. That's one of our largest audiences we've had since, I think, Grant Wistrom and Jared Thomas were on the show. So thanks for that, guys. We really appreciate all of you who stick around. All of you interacted tonight in the comments section. You guys are the best. Even the Iowa fan. He was a little snarky at first, but then he became a contributor. and we appreciate that. So until next time, for Coach BA and Justin, my son Scott, and myself, we are Generation Red, and we are here to remind you every single week that there is absolutely no place like Nebraska. God, I screwed up the outro again, Scott. But anyway.
That's okay.
Our brains are fried from
the news. It didn't suck as bad as Iowa's corn, though. So
there we go. That was a good transition.
That's true.
That was
it. Did. Thank you for saving me, because we're here to chronicle Nebraska's eventual return to college football greatness, one podcast at a time, and we will see you. Not sure when, but soon. God bless, and go Big Red.
Go Big Red.